Hello, my name is Lauren Thompson. Today I will be describing the reforms that need to be made to the cookie laws in America. So first, before I begin, let's define what cookies are. And these cookies have nothing to do with macadamia nuts or chocolate chips, unfortunately. These cookies are files that companies place on their websites to collect information from consumers to better tailor their ad experiences to them based off their specific preferences. In theory, this is a great idea because it saves both consumers and the companies a lot of time when it comes to advertising because companies know specifically what each consumer likes, so they make advertisements that would influence them to buy products that these companies know they would enjoy and have previously inquired about. So the problem with these cookies come when people steal their information, and this is also known as cookie scraping. And if you don't think that's a big deal, I can tell you personally that I've had my information stolen more times than I would like to admit, me along with 90 other million people across the world. In 2017, there was a reported $172 billion stolen on the internet alone. So if that isn't enough to convince you that these little cookies are a big deal, I don't know what is. Now, the cookie law simply states that before a company can have access to your information, they need to gain your consent first. Before they need to gain your consent first. Now, there are three main issues with this. The first one is that people simply don't understand what their information is used for. According to the Pew Research Center, 6 in 10 Americans say that they can't go a day without their information being collected by companies. And also, 63% of Americans claim that they do not understand, privacy laws. So if you really look at these two statistics, they are very, very similar. About 60% of the population says that they know their information is being used, and about 60% of the population say they don't know what their information is being used for. So companies, they can collect a vast array of information from your name to where you live, to your passwords, to your credit card information, to the links that you've clicked on websites, to the options and preferences and settings that you choose, the accounts you log into, recording what pages you've visited in the past, and also items that you've placed in shopping baskets. So this large amount of information can say a lot of things about you, and it can be useful to these companies, and it can also very well be useful to hackers. Furthermore, the cookie law also says that these companies, if you do not agree to allowing the use of cookies on your personal device, then they also can restrict your usage of their websites, which is unfair because if you do not want your information to be susceptible to being stolen, but you also really, really need the information or products on that particular website, then either way, you're kind of out of luck. And that's just simply not fair. Furthermore, the second the second concern is terms and conditions are often flawed. So when I first said the term terms and conditions, what's the first thing that probably comes to your mind? The fact that you don't usually read them. So terms and conditions come in a variety of different forms, from little buttons on pop-up screens to long paragraphs and checkboxes, and sometimes terms and conditions can even be implied. But all these different types of terms and conditions are all put under the umbrella of permission-based advertising, and it's these terms, it sets a legal ground for consumers who use these websites, so they're technically exposed to the information. However, it also makes it harder for these consumers to understand if someone's information is being compromised and how it's being used, simply because terms and conditions are not always presented in the same way. According to the Data Protection Directive, the consent of a receiver as any freely given and specific and informed indication of its wishes by which the data subject signifies the agreement to personal data relating to him being processed. So this simply means that in order for someone to truly understand what they are consenting to, they should have the advertiser's name, their address, the purpose of processing, the recipients of the data, and all other information required to ensure that processing is fair. However, with people using probably hundreds of different websites every day, is it truly practical and fair for these this information to be present but not readily accessible or readily easily for a consumer to recall? It isn't. It's not fair. And oftentimes, with all the different websites that we use in a given day, these different terms and conditions can oftentimes get lost in the mix of our minds. So making terms and conditions more clear and accessible for consumers can help better protect them and also help them to understand if taking a risk by visiting these websites is worth it. And finally, the last point is, of course, by using cookies made by businesses, their stored information can be compromised. So there are many ways that one's information can be compromised, and oftentimes is the hackers present very harmless everyday things to consumers that they easily press on, and bam, that's their information sent off to the highest bidder on the black web. For example, viruses sometimes appear like a tech support button that's requesting remote access. It can look like, attacks on people's Wi-Fi. It has many different appearances. And according to the Pew Research Center, 81% of the public says that the potential risk that they face is not worth companies collecting their data. So finally, in conclusion, legislators should make cookies more specific by forcing companies to up their security and make their terms and conditions way more specific so consumers know exactly what they are getting into before they readily hand over their information to these businesses. That is all. Have a great day.